Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Time for hour 2. It's Toker Talk Radio, and the phone lines are open at 650-LEGAL MJ. That's 650-534-2565. Got a lot of stuff to talk about, but before I bring back the Keith Lamont Scott story, let me just get something off my chest real quick here. I'm done with the marijuana versus cannabis argument, folks. Okay? I've made my thoughts quite clear on it. If you don't like the word marijuana, if you think it's offensive or racist, which it can't possibly be because plants can't be offended. But if you feel that way, fine. Go ahead. Take the word marijuana out of your vocabulary. Use the word cannabis all the time. More power to you. Freedom of speech and all that. Good for you. But if you want to jump onto my Twitter feed or my Facebook comments as some sort of one-note show, one-trick pony, constantly harassing me and criticizing me and trolling me over the use of the word marijuana, then you're going to get the ban hammer because I've had it. I refuse to let people try to disparage me, insult me, criticize me for the use of the word marijuana. There's nothing wrong with the word, and I've explained it numerous times, and if you disagree with me, great, that's fine. But quit telling me how to speak. Quit telling me how to write. Quit telling me how to make my memes and shit. You don't like that I use the word marijuana on it? Don't share it. Don't like that I write the word marijuana? Don't read my articles. But I'm not taking any more critique or criticism about the use of the word marijuana. End of topic. All right, so Keith Lamont Scott. We were just talking in the Radical Rant about how the cops, when they showed up, were serving a warrant on someone else. And they saw Scott smoking a joint in his car. And they said, oh, no big deal. And they just moved along. They didn't care. Just smoking a joint. But then later they saw that he also had a gun. And that's what led them to the encounter, because once they saw the gun, the person who was smoking the joint is suddenly a danger to society that must be corralled and contained. The problem is, in North Carolina, it's open carry. It's legal to have that gun. You can have a gun and have it out in the open. Now, you can't concealed carry without a permit. That's a problem. But as far as those cops knew at that time, when Keith Lamont Scott was not under suspicion of any sort of danger or committing serious crime, the only thing he was doing was smoking a joint, which they had decided already was not a big deal, not worth going after. But once they saw the gun, they had to go after him because black guys don't have open carry rights. Let's just be honest about it. Open carry is something for white guys like me. White guys like me can set up sniper positions on high ground, drawing a bead on federal agents, and not even be talked to, not even be arrested or cuffed or dealt with in any way, much less shot. So in Salon, there is NPR, they interviewed a law professor from University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, asking about North Carolina law and open carry and what he thought of the situation. And we'll bring that to you when we come back from break. We got to take a break. We'll be right back. Also coming up, we're going to debunk some fear-mongering about Prop 64 and more. Stay tuned.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Legal to listen to all over the world. We're just not sure about France. CannabisRadio.com. The cannabis business industry is growing. Business is booming. And as new opportunities arise in newly legalized states, each market is getting more competitive. Today, it takes more than just being a good grower. Do you have the resources to market and handle this ever-changing business landscape? Let Canna Management Corporation help you grow your canna business with our vast resources and experience to make your business a fully functional service company. Financial management, HR, sales, marketing, efficiency, and more. CMC has the experience and the expertise to improve your business and help you better meet the demands of your clients and customers. Call Canna Management Corporation and let our team get you ready to grow. 415-269-8015. That's 415-269-8015. Or visit canna-management.com.
Tommy Chong Show on Cannabis Radio. You know, about this podcast, what I really want to do from now on is to solve world problems. I feel like my job is to calm everybody down and focus on how we can save this planet.
The Tommy Chong Podcast, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome to my world.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Adrian, I finished it. I got Adrian.
Okay, maybe you're high too.
New beginner guitars and banjos are often constructed much better than ones built before your time. Why struggle? Get a new instrument or fix the old one. The trusted professionals at the Fingerboard Extension will evaluate your instrument for free. Repairs are priced for people who work for a living. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com.
Remember, friends, there's more to life than marijuana. I just can't remember what it is. Why'd I come in here? You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Oh boy! All right, so no, I'm not gonna bring that up. I'm just gonna leave it. You can read it on my Facebook page if you want to. But the ban hammer is out. I'm done. I have had it. I have had it with the goddamn, and I mean goddamn, pious, religious, high horse condemnation that I am receiving from some of these reverends of the sacred plant. Now, I'm all for freedom of religion. I'm all for you believing whatever you want to believe, doing whatever you want to do. Where I have a problem with this shit is when someone wants to take a pile of multiply mistranslated, politically edited, Bronze Age fairy tales that are internally contradictory and laden with the worship of a God that exhibits nothing but cruelty and dickishness and pettiness and jealousy. I am tired of the people who use that book to look down their nose at people that disagree with them. We've been having this little debate online on the, should you use the word marijuana? Should you use the word cannabis? And I've gone over it numerous times. And this woman, this reverend from the Healing Church, isn't that clever? It uses THC as its acronym, like tetrahydrocannabinol, but it's the Healing Church. Why, I bet nobody ever thought of doing that, using a THC acronym. How clever. But throughout this whole debate, she's continued to imply that I am somehow racist for using the word marijuana. Continued to call it its slave name. Refers to it as its slave name. This woman is anthropomorphizing the cannabis plant to such an extent, she actually thinks it has feelings. She will say the cannabis plant, she doesn't like that. Just like the typical religious charlatans and frauds that claim they speak to something out there and they're the only ones that can divine its intentions. So, I go through and defend my points about the fact that marijuana in the United States gets 10 times the recognition that cannabis does. That marijuana cannot be a racist term because a plant is not a race. Plants are not sentient. Plants cannot have their feelings hurt. Plants cannot be demeaned or devalued. Or if they are, the plant could give a shit about it. It's a plant. So it can't be a racist term. It can't be an offensive term. You could be offended by it, but the term itself cannot be offensive because marijuana is a slang term for the dried flowering tops of cannabis plants that have been prepared for vaporization or smoking and are usually seedless. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a perfectly accurate term. In fact, more accurate than saying cannabis. Saying I smoke cannabis is like saying I eat cow. I drink ethanol. I took my Canis lupus familiaris out for a walk. So I've had it. I'm done. Because people, like I said, I make this whole case, and the response is, well, it's cannabis in the Bible. Oh, well, okay. The Bible says so. Well, then, okay. I guess then. And of course, it doesn't say cannabis in the Bible. You will not do a search. I'm sure online somewhere you can find the entire text of the Bible. Do a search, press Control F and type in CANNABIS. See if you can find it. I don't care what version. Look in the King James, look in the New International Version. I don't care. You're not going to find the word cannabis. You're going to find the word cannabosum, perhaps, or calamus. You ain't going to find cannabis. Now, I understand the history, and people want to say, but this was the recipe for the holy anointing oil of Jesus, who, by the way, also was not a historical figure who actually lived. Jesus Christ, as we know him mythologically, is an amalgam of many Christ-like figures that were around that 1st century AD, 1st century BC time. Lots of them were written up. The first contemporary accounts of Jesus were written 70 years after his death. That's like me writing about F. Scott Fitzgerald and what was F. Scott Fitzgerald's life like 70 years later after his death, right? So you can theorize that it was cannabis that was part of the anointing oil. And it makes a lot of sense, being a psychoactive material, and how early religions would make use of herbs and funguses and psychoactive substances to commune with the gods. It sure makes sense. But even if that's true, it does not provide you with some sort of unimpeachable higher status as an arbiter of what the fuck I'm supposed to say when I'm describing ganja or herb or weed or pot. Ah, dang it. I'm sorry. I didn't want to get into all of this, and here I go. I got all into it, and that's the way it goes sometimes. But it makes me mad. I'm telling you, just policing my language just pisses me off. All right, I've been teasing this quote. I got to get this quote out. Let's go back to Keith Lamont Scott for a second. Keith Lamont Scott sitting in his car smoking a joint. Cops don't think it's a big deal. They leave him alone. Then they see the gun. Oh, now it's a big deal. Now we got to deal with him. Yada, yada, yada. Guy gets shot, killed, dead in the street. But again, North Carolina, open carry state. What was it about holding the gun up that suddenly made the weed dangerous? Or what was it about the weed that somehow made the gun dangerous? Well, these questions were also thought of by a Professor Kennedy, who is a professor at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill's Law School. And they asked him about this. And let me give you the quote. This is Professor Kennedy. So here's the question. Do the police have a reasonable suspicion that you're not just armed, but dangerous? So think of that in terms of 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, the police see me littering and I have a gun on my hip. Scenario number 2, the police see me breaking into a car with a crowbar and I have a gun on my hip. Arguably, the police are justified in pointing their guns at me in scenario 2. They see me committing what is a felony in North Carolina. And the reasonable fear would be that since I have a gun, maybe I'll use it to resist arrest for a felony. Scenario 1, it doesn't seem reasonable to sort of draw their guns on me because littering is an infraction. The question is, where does smoking marijuana fit on that spectrum? Is it reasonable to assume that someone who's smoking marijuana and has a gun is also dangerous and is likely to resist the police contact with deadly force? Now, keep in mind that marijuana possession isn't an infraction like littering, but it's only one step higher than that. It's the lowest possible misdemeanor there is and mandated to not have any jail time assigned to it. So as low as a arrestable crime can be is marijuana possession when you're smoking a joint. So where on the spectrum that Professor Kennedy described, where on the spectrum does that fit? That's the question. Let's go to our phone lines and see if anyone has any answers. We got the 918 area code on the air. How you doing?
Hey, Russ, how you doing?
I'm great. What's up?
Good. Hey, this is Corey from Illegally Healed.
Corey, so glad to hear from you, folks. If you don't know, Illegally Healed, at Illegally Healed on Twitter, illegallyhealed.com is the website for Colton Turner, 16-year-old medical marijuana patient in Colorado. And Corey, you're the father, is that right?
No, I'm the co-founder of Illegally Healed.
Russ. Oh, co-founder. Sorry. So what's up? What's on your mind?
Yeah. So we're down here in Arkansas, and we saw Kevin Sabet come through. He came 40 minutes from my house.
Oh, really?
And he didn't know. He had no idea that this was the base operation for Illegally Healed. And this is one day prior to him going up there and holding the gummy bears up for props. And so, wanted to call and give you a little scoop on that.
Yes, please do.
So he comes into town, and I roll in with the Illegally Healed cameras. We're going to document this, kind of how you did up in Oregon, I believe.
Yeah.
Was that right?
That's right.
So we wanted to go hold him accountable. That's what we can do. You know what I mean? And so he had no clue. He thought, part of, he's holding a press conference.
Okay.
And the oddly enough, the Arkansas, the Arkansas Chamber of Commerce, the Arkansas Surgeon General, the Family Council, and the Arkansas Farm Bureau started a...
Sorry about that. Hold on a second. Just a second. I had to kill an element that was playing there. It was covering you up. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure. Yeah, no. So that coalition started a group to fight the medical marijuana initiatives here in Arkansas, and so they brought in their show pony, the quarterback of the anti-movement, Kevin Sabet. So we got the press release that they were doing this. We wanted to go talk to him, so we show up, and he had no idea, and he's talking with the other press. And it's really interesting, and I'll send you this clip so you can see it. But the before the interview started, before his presentation, they were doing some pre-interviews, and so we're configuring our cameras and such. And Kevin's talking with one of the reporters, and one of the local reporters, and she said, I do a lot of advocacy work, and he's like, oh yeah, for who? And she goes, for the MS Society. And so and he goes, oh yeah, they have a study that it's not helping for MS. He's telling this to the reporter, and then he's like, yeah, they say it's good for pain, but you take 2 shots of vodka, that's good for your pain too. So this is the kind of things that he's saying to reporters beforehand, before his presentation. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And so he goes up and he gives his presentation. He's calm, cool, collective. He goes to the crowd, to ask for questions. So I ask him some very poignant questions. You can go to our Facebook and look at those. But he starts to back out of those questions, and then that's when he starts, sweating, and then he calls patients props.
Yeah.
And so that, Colton was watching on the live stream, because we live stream that. And so Colton is up there with his family in Colorado, and he's watching on the live stream. He can't believe this. And then the next day when we hear the news that you broke about, him losing those gummy bears, we had to do something about it. And so that's the video that you were telling us on Twitter, talking to us on Twitter about.
Yeah, let me play that audio for our listeners out there. This is from the Illegally Healed Facebook page, and you'll see it as a video that's entitled, "Wow, this 16-year-old cannabis patient teaches anti-cannabis leader a lesson." It's been shared over 12,000 times. It's got over 620,000 views. This is Colton Turner dropping the mic on Kevin Sabet. Let me make sure I got the audio ready for this, and here we go.
The anti-marijuana spokesman, Kevin Sabet, warned Massachusetts not to legalize marijuana, or stoners will leave THC-laced gummy bears lying around for kids to get into. Then he loses the illegal THC-laced gummy bears when he used them as a prop when he left them lying around the set of a debate in Boston.
Look, at the end of the day, Jim, and I brought some props if that's okay, I think parents should ask themselves whether they can tell which bag of candy here is marijuana and which one isn't.
You're not going to do the Skittles.
Well, you can try them if you want, Jim, but maybe afterwards.
I am a legal cannabis patient living in Colorado. I take high amounts of cannabis oil in a very concentrated form every single day. So Kevin, let me show you how I, a teenager, takes care of his medicine. We'll call this the smart approach to medical cannabis. See what I did there? Dr. Kevin Sabet, PhD. I saw when you were in Arkansas. You called patients like me a prop for big marijuana. Well, here I am. I am not a prop. I am a patient. I have Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus. I am illegally healed, and cannabis is my medicine. My name's Colton Turner.
Rush, you still there?
Yep.
Dr. Sabet.
Okay.
All right. Great audio there from Colton Turner. You can find that at facebook.com/illegally healed. Over 620,000 views. Corey, anything else you want to add? I'm sorry?
Yeah, so I think it's important, Russ, that you tell the listeners about Kevin Sabet's tactics. And so, you beat him up during a cycle, and so it cycles with this guy. And what we're seeing this time is when you were talking with him up there in Oregon, he was cannabis isn't medicine. He was starting to come around. Well, this cycle that he's going around, this tour that he's doing, if you will, he's now convincing people, okay, I'm on your side. All right, well, cannabis may be medicine, but we need to isolate it. And so that, and then the only other thing that he's talking about is candies. One of the terrestrial media reporters that was there, she was confused even. One of her lines of questioning was, is the only thing that you guys are concerned about is this being candy? And so when you hold people to the fire, and when advocates show up and they question these anti-marijuana campaigns that are going on in their states, and they bring real scientific questions and answer this. There's people there that will report what the patients are saying. And if you go to our Facebook page, you can see that as well. We rebroadcasted a news broadcast, and you can see how the news spun it, because we were able to hold Kevin accountable live and not let him spew his lies. And so Kevin is one of many, but they're all using his talking points. Angela Baca is seeing the same thing in Nevada. Ricardo down in Arizona with the 1620 Legion, they're seeing the same thing down there. It's all the same talking points, and so it's just we got to figure out what they're doing this cycle and come out against it. So.
Yep. All right. Well, we will keep doing that, and thanks for getting us the report there from Arkansas, and give our best to Colton, and our thanks for making that video. That's awesome.
Yeah, Russ, thank you, too, for all you do, buddy.
I appreciate all the praise. Thank you so much. All right, we got to get to our meeting, folks.
That's just how white folks will do you.
It's 4:20-something here in the Pacific time zone. We're late to our union-mandated safety briefing. I'm feeling a little dangerous. We'll be right back with more from the Los Angeles Times debunking the Capitol Journal on Prop 64.
Being green is good. Growing green is good. Making green is great. CannabisRadio.com.
Oh, let the marijuana llama tell you something now about a game for your phone gonna make you say, wow! The game's about the game of growing cannabis for cash. Grow the seed, sell the bud, put the savings in the stash. Little by little, your empire grows large. Put the big celebrities inside your entourage. You can choose to play with Snoop or me or Cheech and Chong. Cypress Hill, Willie Nelson, Wiz Khalifa with a bong. The name of the game is Hemp Inc., that's the point. Download and play while you light yourself a joint. The business of cannabis should be no crime. Hemp Inc. is even hot-proofed by the man who run High Times. Oh yeah? Get it on Android and iOS today. Marijuana llama out. Got to tend to me own crops, you know. Money don't make itself. Hemp Inc.
The political climate is at a fever pitch, and the fight for the social fabric of America is set for battle this November. Tuesday, November 8th, the cannabis liberation movement takes a huge step forward, and Cannabis Radio is here to chronicle this legendary moment. CannabisRadio.com and the Cannabis Radio News team will feature wall-to-wall live coverage of all the coast-to-coast voting of state amendments, ballots, propositions, and initiatives that will further progress the cannabis crusade. Join us November 8th for Vote 2016, the path to cannabis freedom, only on CannabisRadio.com.
You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com, where we don't change our mind on decriminalization during an election year.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The Law Office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 4:30 here in the Pacific time zone. I've got a new meme out on the Gummygate. There's a whole bunch of them. If you go look for hashtag Gummygate on Twitter or Facebook, you should find most of my graphics. This one's my latest iteration of the complaint by the prohibitionists, as evidenced by Kevin Sabet, that if we legalize marijuana, there will be these marijuana gummy bears. And there's no way your kids will ever be able to tell the difference between the marijuana gummy bears and the regular gummy bears. And they're going to eat them and they're going to get sick. They're going to go to the hospital and terrible things will happen. Right? So, the latest iteration is a meme I've put together where I take 8 different adult products and compare them side by side with 8 products that children might enjoy and ask the question, why are legal marijuana gummy bears any different than any other adult product? For example, we have Hershey's chocolate bars. Kids love Hershey's chocolate bars, right? But we also have X-Lax chocolate laxative. Well, how do we ever keep the kids from getting into the X-Lax and eating all that chocolate, thinking it's chocolate, thinking all that laxative, thinking it's chocolate? How do we ever pull that? How do we ever accomplish that? Or, for example, Rolo candy. You know Rolos? Those little chocolate caramels, right? Rolos. And I compare that to some Kahlua-filled chocolates that are actually alcoholic, right? And you got the Kahlua in them. How in the world did we ever manage to buy a bunch of Kahlua chocolates as adults and have them without the kids getting into them and thinking they were Rolos? So I did this with everything. I got Jell-O shots versus Jell-O. I got Xanax versus Tic Tac. I got Sprite versus vodka. I got a dildo versus a Nerf sword. I've got the Tide laundry pods versus beach ball candy, it's called. And most importantly, I have a tetracaine lollipop. Tetracaine is this synthetic derivative of cocaine. It's a topical anesthetic. And so when little kids have like throat surgery or tonsillectomies or whatever they got to go to, doctors can prescribe to them this tetracaine lollipop to suck on to numb their throat. Well, how do we ever manage to control tetracaine lollipops and not get them confused with a Charms blow pop that it looks identical to? How do we pull that off? Or even better, there's a drug called Adzenys. Adzenys. It's a drug called Adzenys. It was just approved by the FDA for the treatment of ADHD in youngsters as young as 6 years old can use this drug. And the new remarkable point about this drug is that it's a dissolvable orange candy flavored disc. Now, the drug, its active ingredient is amphetamine. We're basically talking about candy meth. Candy flavored, dissolve in your mouth meth tablets that don't look that dissimilar from orange spree. You know the spree candies, right? Looks like orange spree. How in the world could we have this drug that 6-year-olds can use for ADHD that's meth and not confuse that with the other 6-year-olds that are eating spree candy? What makes marijuana any different than any other adult product? That's the new meme. It's available on my Facebook and all my feeds as well. You can check that out. All right, let me get to the Capital Journal. This is out of the Los Angeles Times. And the Times itself, I think, has endorsed Prop 64. But the writer for Capital Journal, George Skelton, has a op-ed entitled "The Problem with Rushing to Legalize Marijuana for Stoner Use in California. Rushing to legalize marijuana for stoner use, not recreational use, not personal use, not adult use, not non-medical use. Stoner use. All right. And I like the frame rushing. We're rushing in. We're rushing in. You know, we tried to legalize it in 2010 and didn't, and then spent the next 6 years working over various different iterations and language changes and amendments to what would eventually become Prop 64 now. But yeah, we're rushing in. We're rushing in some 4 years after Colorado and Washington already legalized. We're rushing in. Well, we don't need to rush. Let's just take a moment and take a breath here. Okay, that's the frame, right? So here's his problems, and let me run them down real quick. First part is the smoking and driving. That's what he's got a problem with. He says there's no way to know how stoned a motorist can be before he's dangerously under the influence of cannabis. Unlike with liquor, there's no 0.08 blood alcohol equivalent for marijuana. There's not even a common breathalyzer to measure drug driving, and there's nothing around the corner. That's one problem with rushing to legalize marijuana for stoner use. Stoner use, okay? So here's the problem with your whole breathalyzer thing, right? If your point is that we shouldn't rush to legalize marijuana until we have determined a scientific method to detect cannabis impairment by someone's blood, saliva, urine, or breath, then we're never going to legalize marijuana because there is no scientific magic bullet solution that says you've smoked too much pot to drive. Pot ain't alcohol, George. Let's go to our phone lines. We got another call coming in from the 618 area code. Well, we did, and it just went away. All right, we'll see if we can catch that next time. And the next part of his screed is where he explains this term stoner use. And here's what he says. Weed marketers have managed to corrupt the language and sell this as recreational use, as if getting high was akin to hiking, tennis, or soccer. You sip booze, you're a social drinker, or if a gulper, a drunk. Puff on cigarettes, you're a smoker. You're never a recreationist. Well, I'll concede part of this point to him. I, too, have a problem with the term recreational marijuana for the same reason. It sounds like hiking. It sounds like, but more is that it makes it sound frivolous. It makes it sound like something you can just leave away, discretionary, optional, entertainment, right? That's what recreational brings to the table. Adult use, I prefer. Personal use is even better. But if he's got a problem that we don't call people recreationists, then let me make a suggestion, George. Call us tokers. You can call us tokers. That's fine. So the other point he wants to make here is that this is not your father's Woodstock weed. According to a anti-Prop 64 strategist, quote, "This is high-grade stuff they're putting in candy bars, and you're climbing the wall. This modern marijuana isn't like the crappy pot you were smoking in college," end quote. Ah, yes, not your father's Woodstock weed. Well, here's the deal with that, George. When people are smoking or vaporizing marijuana, they immediately feel how it affects them. Immediately. Like within, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. You can't overdo it unless you try to if you're smoking or vaporizing because of the self-titration effect. You're going to smoke until you get where you want to get. High is a place, right? Back in the day with the Woodstock weed, you might have smoked a whole joint, maybe two, to get you to high, to get you to that place. Nowadays, all you got to do is smoke a puff or two, and you get to that place. In essence, in Woodstock days, y'all had to ride horseback to get from sober to high. And today, we get to drive cars to go from sober to high. We get there more efficiently. We get there quicker. But it doesn't mean that we get any higher than we were getting. It doesn't mean that the high is any different than it used to be. It just means we were able to get there quicker and safer. We were able to get there safer because if we're smoking it, we're taking in all of those hydrocarbons and all the smoke. If we had to smoke a whole joint to get to high, we're taking in more smoke than if we only have to smoke 2 puffs to get high. So this it's more potent is a red herring. And the biggest point as to why it's a red herring is because cannabis is non-toxic. Potency makes a difference if the thing you're using can kill you. The variance in potency of things like cocaine, meth, and heroin are what lead to a lot of the overdoses. The variance in potency of marijuana is not going to make any difference. Now, the other point would be the eating, right? You put this in candy bars and you're climbing the wall. That's where the problem can happen. That's where you can have a bad reaction, because with eating cannabis, not only does it take longer before it kicks in, you lose that self-titration, just like you do with alcohol. Right? When you're drinking alcohol, you might be on that 6th shot before you realize, oh shit, I should have stopped at shot 4, because it takes a while to digest. So with the candy bars, the gummies, the cookies, the whatever, you need to treat it like you treat shots of alcohol. Do you line up 6 shots and chug them all at once? Well, some of you do, but you shouldn't. Right? Well, neither should you line up 6 servings of some sort of infused treat and eat them all at once. Now, this just means we need some education and we need some understanding and some better labeling. It doesn't mean that we need to keep locking people up over marijuana because somebody might overdo it with a cookie. The other thing that he points out is that California's got medical marijuana, and he's got a lot of scare quotes in there. Doctor recommendation, right? But that's another one of their talking points is we don't need to legalize with Prop 64. We don't need to rush. We don't need to hurry, because there's medical marijuana if you really want pot. And even if you don't get medical, if you're popped with just a personal amount, it's decriminalization. So you're only going to get a ticket. This is the stall tactic. This is all they got is a stall tactic. Let's hold on, not so fast. He writes, quote, "You'd think our leaders would advise waiting to see how regulating medicinal pot works out before barreling full blast into legalizing it for every adult. Also, it would be nice to have a marijuana intoxication standard in place before stoners get behind the wheel. Why hurry to legalize consumption of another poison? We've already got alcohol, which can ruin lives. Tobacco causes cancer. Cannabis, it can mess up the mind. Plenty of research shows that." Well, we'll explain why we need to rush, as you put it, when we come back from break. Stick around.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Cannabis use isn't the only thing growing. So are we. Grow with us. CannabisRadio.com.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
Previously on the Stoner Jesus Show.
We do have John McAfee. He's running for the Libertarian Party nomination for president. What makes someone like you want to take the reins of this?
We're so far behind, it's frightening. And in a cyber war, we can't hack into the Chinese. Back in 1979, they started building cyber defense systems. We didn't even think about it until 20 years ago. I see no candidates and certainly no one within government capable of dealing with this issue.
The Stoner Jesus Show, live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Or find the Stoner Jesus Show podcast on demand at CannabisRadio.com and StonerJesus.net.
Peace, bitches.
The Russ Belville Show. We're as much like Cheech and Chong as ordinary Americans are like the Three Stooges. Hey, Mo!
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
Yarr, thar be pirates here. Har, 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 har. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 46 after the hour here. And we got a great week of shows coming up here on the Russ Belville Show as we count down to Marijuana Election Night 2016. Hashtag MJ Election Night if you want to follow along on the net. And coming up on tomorrow's show, joining us will be David Downs from Smell the Truth out there at the San Francisco Gate. He's got a new book out, the Medical Marijuana Guidebook. We'll talk about it in our Reformers Reader segment. We're also going to have a representative from Florida's United for Care campaign, the Amendment 2 for medical marijuana. We'll talk about the latest polling in Florida showing over 70% support and how we can help get medical marijuana passed there in the Sunshine State. On Wednesday, another two-guest show. We've got David Boyer from Regulate Maine, continuing our Marijuana Election Night preview with a look at Maine's, is it question 2 in Maine, I think it is, for the legalization of marijuana, recently showing at 53% in the polls. Then David will be followed by another David Deinenberg from Kind Financial. He'll be joining us to talk about regulatory software and compliance, seed-to-sale tracking, and other financial news in the world of marijuana. On Thursday, we have our second edition of our Every Other Thursday segment with Jorge Cervantes, our Cultivator's Corner. We'll have the live phone line open, and you can ask grow questions of one of the most prolific authors on cannabis growing in the world, Jorge Cervantes. That's coming up on Thursday. And then Friday, we'll wrap things up with an interview of the Regulate Massachusetts campaign. Question 4 in Massachusetts, sitting at 50% in the polls. We'll learn how we can help them out there get marijuana legalization passed. That's all coming up this week on the Russ Belville Show, live on CannabisRadio.com, right here in beautiful legal Potland, Oregon. Had a great weekend. I hope you did as well. My Boise State Broncos came into Oregon, down to Corvallis, and whooped the Oregon State Beavers. On the same day that in Eugene, the Colorado Buffaloes pulled off an upset of the Oregon Ducks. So both the big Oregon universities in the Pac-12 lost their football games this weekend, and Boise State won their third in a row. Boise State is 2-0 against the Pac-12 now, and one of 5 college football teams that has yet to be behind in a game. So it's been a good weekend for me for the football, as well with the victory by the Green Bay Packers over the Detroit Lions. So I'm just on top of the world, football-wise. Very, very happy. Let me bring it back to marijuana. We were discussing this Capital Journal piece, and the author here is warning us not to rush into marijuana legalization. What's the hurry? What's the hurry, you guys? We got medical. We got decrim. Why should we rush to legalize marijuana before we've before we figured out the pot breathalyzer that can never scientifically be validated. Right? Yeah, let's wait for the pot breathalyzer to be invented, and then we'll wait until we learn how to transmute lead into gold, and then we'll legalize marijuana. But this line of his, where he says, why the hurry to legalize consumption of another poison? We've already got alcohol, which can ruin lives. Tobacco causes cancer. Cannabis, it can mess up the mind. Well, first of all, it's not poison, because poisons can kill you. Cannabis cannot kill you. Number two, this idea, this trope that we get from the prohibition side, this is one that I've called the third legal drug. Why should we have a third legal drug? Why should we add a third legal drug to the menu? As if marijuana does not exist now, and millions of Californians are not already consuming it. And the other thing that bothers me, when these prohibition types simultaneously want to support medical and demean medical as a way to forestall legalization. His line here was for the past 20 years, California has had a wink-wink law that permits use of marijuana for medicinal purposes, phony or not. Okay, so you know why you have this perception that it's a wink-wink law and people are faking it to get their recommendation? It's because they've been consuming cannabis and they don't want tickets or to get arrested. It's because they've been consuming cannabis and they want to have a safe, reliable, secure, well-lit place with a lot of choices to make their purchases rather than some parking lot CVS. So when these prohibitionists want to demean California's medical marijuana as being fake, as being phony, and then use that to forestall the one solution that would fix the problem, is just loony. You don't want California to be a fake wink, wink, nudge, nudge medical system. Stop forcing people to wink, wink, and nudge, nudge to avoid arrest for what they're already doing. And that's one point, I think, that's going to be a really interesting thing. I'm headed down October 5th, next week on Wednesday. I'll be on the State House steps in Sacramento, California with Attorney Dale Schaefer. He and I will be facing off against stoners against legalization. We are facing off against the people like this guy who think that, medical's fine, it's enough, and we got decrim, so we really don't need to we don't really need to legalize now. Oh, no, that'd be a bad idea to legalize now. We're going to be debating that on the State House steps. And these people, of course, are just another set of people who have a vested financial interest in prohibition continuing, in medical marijuana status quo staying the way it is. They like it just fine that it's illegal enough to keep the price at $300 an ounce and $1,500 a pound wholesale. They like that part, that it's just illegal enough that we don't have big capitalized growers to compete with and lots of shops to have to, compete with and all of that. We like this. We like the medical because it's just illegal enough. We can keep the price high, but it's just legal enough that none of us ever sweat about getting busted or going to prison. And you got to admit, if you had that deal, you might want to keep that too. Why open up the competition to everyone else when you've already got the market cornered? Why open up greater economies of scale in production and distribution that would lower the wholesale prices when you've got the prices right where you like them? I can understand their motivation. It's just, let's be clear what it is. So we're going to be down there debating, and I know that one of the topics is going to be that, well, if we pass Prop 64, it'll be the end of medical marijuana. It happened like it happened in Washington. It'll be the end of medical marijuana. It'll be the end. It'll be over. It'll be no more medical marijuana. It'll be over. And you know what? I can't disagree with them to some extent. Here's why. Marijuana is prohibited. It's contraband substance. If you're caught with it, seen with it, if it's smelled, if there's evidence you've got it, even just a tip, a rumor that you've got it, cops can forcibly put their hands on you and cuff you and arrest you and stuff you and jail you, even kill you in certain circumstances because marijuana is illegal. Medical marijuana, as it's existed in this country, is not legal marijuana. Medical marijuana is an exception to the criminal prosecution, and in most cases arrest, over breaking the law with marijuana that still exists. Medical marijuana patients, you're not doing something legal. All you California medical marijuana patients buying your bud at the dispensary and smoking it and growing it, you're breaking California law. You know that, right? You are just as much the stoner caught with a bag. You are just as much the grower busted in the field. You are just as much the dealer dealing on the street as anybody who's not sick. As far as the law is concerned, we're all committing the same crime. There is no such thing as medical marijuana as a product. You can't go to the store shelves and look at one bud and go, oh, now that one's medical marijuana, and oh, that one's not medical. It's all the same plant. The plant is fungible. The people who smoke it for fun or pleasure are smoking the same thing that the patients are smoking for relief and medicine. It's the same plant. So this medical marijuana situation can't not change after legalization happens. Now, you can write it. You can, like we did in Oregon in our Measure 91, 3 times in Measure 91, shall not affect the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act, will not change the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act. Prop 64's got the same thing, 3 times, does not affect the Compassionate Use Act. And that's technically true. Passage of these legalization initiatives in these states do not contain a single piece of text that alters, amends, or abolishes any section or piece of text within the current medical marijuana laws. Technically speaking, that's true. You write your legalization, nothing in there changes a medical section. But realistically, passage of legalization will change medical marijuana because now what you were getting an exception for doesn't need an exception anymore. We made up medical marijuana because cops could bust people if they caught them with weed. When we legalize marijuana, cops can't bust people when they catch them with weed. So what did you need the exception for? And what that will lead to is that in California, once Prop 64 passes and the age limit is 21, the legislature is going to start looking at, well, wait a minute, now we got all these 18, 19, and 20-year-olds who are just lying about a backache, who are just bullshitting about migraines, who are just claiming they have anxiety, so that they can thwart and undercut the 21-year-old age that we've got in our rec shops. I can see the legislature trying to come up with more strict requirements on how to get medical marijuana cards if you're under the age of 21. And the other side will paint that as, oh, see, Prop 64 ruined everything. When Prop 64 didn't do that, it was the ending of prohibition that no longer required the medical marijuana exemption that did that. Wow, so much to say, so little time. Time flies when you legalize. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you tomorrow. Till next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant